24th council meeting and adjourn it till the conclusion of services and assets.
Yep, so we've got everyone on board. I think Cameron's here, everyone's here. All right, well, good morning, everybody. And another unusual time in our lives with this COVID lockdown. I know a few people are getting frustrated that it's 3 or 4 days at a time, but it's the best way we can manage things at the moment through cabinet. So I know everyone will be keeping well where they can. If you're not on, can you just mute so we're not hearing what's happening in the background in your houses? And just remind everybody that this has been recorded and is going out live. I'd like to open the council meeting for today and then ask that we adjourn it till the end of the services meeting. It's good to have Abel back. He's probably not so happy to be back from holiday, but he came back pretty quickly so he could get home before the lockdown. Somebody move. I'm happy to move that we adjourn. Is there a seconder? Margie seconded. All those in favour, just wave. No one against. Carried. Abel, the floor is yours for the services and assets meeting, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mayor Tom. So welcome everybody to the Services and Asset Committee meeting for the 24th of August. Any apologies? I don't think we have any apologies. I think everybody's here.
No, everyone's here.
I
just stepping out early. I need to attend another Zoom at 10 o'clock.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Tom. Any leave of absence for the future? None. Any conflict of interest? Anybody going to declare any conflict?
Well,
okay.
Is it no, it's a council meeting that I have to declare the conflict. Yeah, that's all right.
Yep, good. There's no public forum and there's no extraordinary urgent items. So we'll go straight into the previous minutes, which were on the 13th of July. I'll move that those minutes are true and accurate. Could I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, John. All those in favour, please wave your hand. All those against, please wave your hand. Carried. Thank you. We'll go straight on to item 7.1, Downers Water Waste Maintenance Contract. That's their monthly report, which is for June 2021. So, Bill, are you there? Can I hand it over? Oh, yes, there you go, Bill. Can you speak to your report, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and elected members. So, I'll take the submitted report as read. It's been, obviously, it's a busy time for us at the moment. Downers are operating under their modified standard operating procedures that we came up with last time we were in level 4, which is working well. So that that limits the activities they're undertaking for us a bit. A lot of the routine operation of the water plants has to continue, but for reactive work, it's only things we can't defer. So mains bursts and sewer blockages and things like that continue. We've got 4 members of the water team are on standby if we're required to go out to attend if there's a serious incident. So there's Grant Isaacs, myself, Kelvin Osborne and Tim DeCrease. So 3 of us are fully vaccinated and we've got additional PPE in the vehicles if that was to happen, and it hasn't yet. And I don't really envisage it. It's unlikely, but if we have to, we can. The only other thing that's come up is we did have a reasonably serious sewer blockage in Riverton 2 weeks ago. It was caused by wet wipes in one of the gravity mains, but Environment Southland have attended that. So yeah, we've submitted our report on that incident, and we'll see if anything develops further. So are there any questions?
Thanks, Bill, for that report. I noticed that the drinking water, all the testing has been fully compliant. So that was good. And also I see the environmental issue. The treatment processes are currently under construction at the 2 sites. That there were a couple of issues. Apart from that, everything's particularly boo. Interesting about the wet wipes. I know that I'm pretty sure we did a bit of a campaign, communication campaign there a while ago, and trying to inform our residents about the issues with the wet wipes. Maybe we need to restart that campaign again and just reiterate to our ratepayers the damage those wet wipes do actually cause and the problems they actually cause and the cost associated with that. Maybe it's something we can discuss with the comms team. Anyway, I'll open that up for any questions or comments. Just raise your hand if you, Gary. Oh, sorry, Mayor Tom.
No, I was going to bring up the same thing because that's the second incident, Bill, isn't it, in Riverton?
From wet wipes.
Yeah. There was a blockage about a year ago, I think. I just wonder if they're coming from the same or similar source.
No, this was along the Collett Bay Highway section.
Oh, okay.
So across the bridge and away to the right, which I don't remember having an issue down there before. And it's also the pumps that normally block. This time it was a section of the gravity main, which is more concerning because there didn't appear to be any fault with the main that would make it prone to blocking.
Yep.
There was no issue with the actual infrastructure. It was just the wet wipes.
Okay, cheers.
It's concerning.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up. So, Councillor Ford.
Yes, thanks, Chair. The page 27, there is a fibre strike there through a sewer. Whose responsibility is that? Do the contractors just put fibre wherever they like, or what happens to that arrangement?
So it depends a little bit. If our assets are accurately depicted on our plans and they manage to accidentally hit them anyway, then the liability is on them. If they hit something that we weren't aware of or our plans showed them inaccurately, then the liability is on us. So like in Wyndham at the moment, we've had quite a high number of fibre strikes, and we've got very good plans there. So they're having to pay for all those.
Okay, I understand that. Thank you very much. And having a bit of a knowledge of what the pipes are in this part of the country, I would be very suspicious about some of our plans, but that's fine. Carry on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ford. I note, Councillor Keast, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I have. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Just wondering what constitutes the miscellaneous minor works and what sort of budget is involved in that? It's about half.
Sorry, do you have a page number or?
Oh, sorry, 22.
Sorry, apologise. I'm not seeing the page numbers at my end.
There's a long list of the minor works.
Oh yes. Okay.
I did note one that's quite significant. A couple. There's one at 125,000, one at 138,000.
Yep. Yep. So the just trying to find the miscellaneous minor works.
Just under the executive summary in the report itself.
So is it one of the items of miscellaneous minor? Oh, so you're asking what the actual?
Just what is minor? What constitutes miscellaneous minor works?
Okay, so sorry, gotcha. So the the table is included to try and show the productivity of downers over and above the O&M contract, the lump sum portion of their contract. So this includes some items that have been added, like the very first one, the Riverton chemicals. So we've got a treatment process in there which we're trialing. So we don't want to include it in the lump sum yet because we don't know exactly what the amount is every month. So we're keeping it off to the side. And it'll go up and down each month. In fact, some months it'll be nothing, and other months it'll be, a higher amount because they've ordered a lot of chemicals in. Some of the other things are one-off bits of minor capital works which we've awarded to downers. So there's quite a mix, and at the moment with the stimulus funding, some of these things are actually being paid for out of that stimulus fund. They're not funded by rates, so there's quite a mix in there. So it's not really intended to show the funding sources so much as the productivity. So when that list is big, they've had a big month running around for us doing stuff.
Thank you.
Councillor Douglas, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Under the health and safety report, what was that incident regarding the toolbox all about? I just couldn't quite understand what it directly referred to.
This is in the Downers report.
Yes, there's two items there, but one of them was in relation to a toolbox. What was that?
Okay, that's contractor speak for, they call them Toolbox Meetings, which is it's an informal health and safety meeting, and the idea is you stop work and sit on your toolboxes, and your manager talks to you about what's been going on in the wider company. And so it's something that was introduced across the country, really. Lots, the construction industry has it as well, and it's just a name that's stuck. But that's quite a large one they had, where they set aside a few hours at the Ascot Park Hotel, and they had a big chunk of their team attend, and they had people come from Christchurch, I think, to talk to them about health and safety issues. I think that the trigger for that, just as an aside, was they've seen a spike in vehicle-related injuries on work sites. So they felt they needed to stop and sort of address it.
Okay, comfortable with that response?
That's fine. Now that's the explanation.
Okay, there being no further.
Yep, certainly.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. No further comments or questions. I'm happy to move that we receive this report. I have a seconder for that, please. Thank you, Councillor Scott. All those in favour, please say aye. Oh, sorry, wave your hand. Okay, against? Aye. Carried, thank you. We'll go to item 7.2, road operations, and I'll get Mr. Hayes to speak to that, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, councillors. Road operations report, June 2021. I'll take the report as read, but just cover a couple of the key items there. Item 3, we've released our final contingency fund that we've held within our maintenance budgets. $675,000 was released in May. A bit of context around that sum. That sum is held for us to react to minor events, the like, increased logging activities with the end of the year and the end of the LTP. That was released in May. Majority of it was on methling and drainage activities. The increased RFSs, mainly in the Fovo Alliance area, there was some heavy logging and in some fairly poor conditions around Progress Valley, Waimahaki areas, and we approached the operators, and they ceased work until we could get on top of that. Just the key milestones there for the end of the financial year 2021, and some of the end of LTP, some pretty impressive figures there. The total spend of 87.22 million over the 3 years, including the emergency works, special purpose roading activities. Yeah, a lot of hard work and quite a few unsung heroes in those figures that we've delivered. Like just to go on and briefly mention about our activities with the COVID lockdown. Effectively until yesterday, pretty much nothing has been occurring. Yesterday there was a meeting between the contractors and with our management, and the low risk essential activities are going to commence again from today. These are grading, cyclic activities that has the two people and 2 separate vehicles out there on the network, effectively potholes and signs and urgent activities like that. From our perspective, like within lockdown, like pretty much all that's dropping off in the network is light vehicles. So obviously the wear and tear is still happening. So the grading is essential to get going again, and low risk with lone operators. And just at the end of the report there, the 3 A3s for the end of the financial year. And I'd just like to add there for Councillor Duffy is that the KPIs have been set and will appear on next month's A3 reports with the full year's data there. They've been set by the Alliance management teams. Yeah, but just like to open up for any questions there.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes, and certainly the figures clearly indicate the volume of work that the staff have carried out, and then other contractors as well, of course. So there's been a significant volume of work over the 3 years, as you've indicated, and it's great to see that sort of productivity. It's very good. I'll open up for questions, comments. Karen, yes?
Thank you. I'd just like to ask about the flex spraying that was done. There's $20,000 worth of flex spraying done around in the Riverton sort of area. There was quite a few concerns from the public being raised with me. I had mentioned it previously, and it was explained to me that it was just done in areas where there were visibility issues, and I haven't, obviously with lockdown, been able to go out and have a look, but the explanation from the members of the public is that it's not being done like that. There's large stretches of long straight roads where it's just being sprayed the entire length. Members of the public are really upset about it. They were raised it at a meeting in Oropuki some time ago in relation to NZTA's spraying, and they've changed their practices, and their feelings are that council's been a bit tone deaf on this, because they're aware that there were council representatives at those meetings, and they feel like council's just ignored what they've requested. So yeah, I'm just interested to know, and it's probably as difficult for you guys to know what's actually being done on the ground as well, because unless you've been out there driving, but I'm just interested to know how we can look at changing this practice in the future, because it's clearly against a lot of the community's values for these spaces. And yeah, they're just pretty upset about it. So I'm not sure if you have a reason now why some of them have been done that aren't consistent with the sort of spot spraying in small spaces that was described to me as the way that it was going to be undertaken, and also if there's any way at a perhaps sort of policy level or something we should be doing something to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Okay, thank you for that. I do recall the that discussion earlier on the year, Councillor Owen. So Hartley here, you want to make a comment? I see that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Councillor Owen's correct in terms of the policy around, or the stance around visibility issues, and looking at but like to clarify, it's not just around visibility issues. It's also where you got the second or third growth that has occurred. So it's starting to impinge on the actual the roadway, so to say. So it's not the flexes necessarily sitting back at the fence line, where they've actually grown out onto the road, that they've also been targeted. But it hasn't, the intention hasn't been to target kilometres and kilometres of it in any long stretches, as was the case with the state highway network as referred to several years ago. So it will require, once we're out of lockdown, just to look into that a bit more as to what's actually occurred in the field. From a policy standpoint of view, we haven't, that approach is still very consistent with NZTA's approach. They put out a publication earlier in the year where, yes, they do try and mechanically remove some or allow people to mechanically or harvest it, I suppose. However, it's only if it's safe to do so, and also if they if there's suitable places to dispose of it. Otherwise, they also are very clear that they still do isolated flax spraying. So just like to clarify that as well, it's not that they've completely moved away from it. It depends on the situation. In terms of a STC policy, yeah, it's definitely, you know, if that's a feeling from councillors that we want to change our approach, it is something we can look at, but it will, part of the consideration is obviously the environmental and visual aspects as well as the cost implications. So from a cost point of view, there's probably about per day you'd only expend around $6,000 or $7,000 to achieve a couple of 100 meters of flax removal, as opposed to, you know, a wider range with the $20,000 that we did achieve. So we'd have to do quite a bit of work around there, but there would be quite a significant cost implication. But it is something, if we get the directive from council to look at, we can investigate that a bit more.
Thank you, Mr. Hare, but it certainly has come up previously, and Councillor Owen certainly raises a very significant concern that's been raised. So I would be appreciative if we get a, let's say, a report, maybe in a workshop for a start, so we can really bounce this around a bit more and just see where to from here, because we don't want the situation to keep coming up at meetings. We need to get a position on this. I see, Councillor Keast, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. A question around our practices, really, and that would be when we are doing work in the drainage work, I suppose it is, what consideration are we giving to the environment from the point of reducing the sediment that they can then rush into our waterways? I see that this is, we need to step up here, because this is a focus that everybody is being asked on the land. The farmers are being asked to ensure sediment does not leach into waterways, and I see that some of the work that we're doing probably really encourages it. So just that might be the topic to put into that workshop as well too, around those practices, what we could be doing.
Excellent idea, Councillor Keast. Good idea. Let's get an overall objective over this. So, yep. You got a note of that, Mr. Hare? Good, thank you. And Mr. Hamilton, any other questions, comments?
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councillor Duffy.
I noticed in item 4, there's talking about the damage done, as Hartley referred to with the logging, but it says that there's pavement strengthening being done on the Waimahaka Fortification and Mokarita Tākopa roads. And I'm just wondering, is that actually sealed pavement strengthening on the sealed part, or is it just referring to the extra gravelling that was done on the gravel?
You have to answer that, Hartley?
Yeah,
thank you.
That's all. So that's on the unsealed portion. It's extra gravel, strengthening up the unsealed pavement.
Yeah, okay. And just something related to the flax spraying. I'm sure in a recent meeting there was a query about this, and the staff said that the flax was being just sprayed where it was growing in the water table part of at the edge of the road, and I do see young flax establishing itself in some of those. So I'm just wondering if that's what the flax spraying is taken care of, or is it actually wider than that into the actual crop of flax, if you like, that's growing on the roadside as a whole.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I would hope that that sort of information will come to the workshop, so we get a full analysis of the program with regards to flax spraying and how that's being done, and also the concerns that Councillor Keast has raised. So let's broaden this topic and let's get a handle on it. Councillor Owen.
Yeah, thank you. Just one more question. I've just had some comments from people around some of the footpath replacements been happening around Riverton, and a lot of bit of confusion as to why in some places the guttering part of it was replaced, in other places it hasn't. So the perspective is there are quite a few people who are confused as to why there's existing footpaths being replaced where there's new ones needed, and I sort of had to explain to them around the NZTA co-funding and reasons around just only renewals being done as opposed to new ones. But they have raised some questions as to why some perfectly good gutter channeling has been ripped up and replaced, and in other places where they've put in the new footpath haven't done anything with deteriorating guttering. So sorry, I've probably not got the terminology right, but hopefully you understand what I'm talking about.
I'm sure. Hartley, you might want to respond to that.
Yes, thank you. Without the exact locations, it may be a bit difficult to answer, but in general, in some instances, the older footpath and the curb and channel, the guttering, is all in one. So there's no. So if you replace one, you've got to replace both. In other cases, they are actually being constructed separately, and in those situations, you can get away with only constructing, say, the footpath and not necessarily the curb and channel. In saying that, there are situations where the curb itself has also deteriorated to a point where we look at doing both, because if we don't do the curb and channel, from a condition point of view, then wood will get into the road pavement and then you'll start having issues with the road. So there's probably 3 different scenarios there.
Okay, maybe I'll send you some photos after lockdown at the specific part.
Good on you. Yeah. It's a good idea. Okay, Mayor Tong, so you got your hand up?
Just been texting our chief executive in regards to this stuff. We're long overdue for a district tour, and I think to have a workshop and look at some photos doesn't do it won't do it justice. I think we need to look at Councillor Keith's issues as well as Councillor Owen's issues, and just go out and have a look at it so we've got it in our heads and take the team with us. So we have been delayed, obviously, because of busyness and COVID, and I don't think we can keep blaming that. We need to actually get in a bus and get out there and look at some of this stuff.
Great idea. I'll leave it to you and the chief executive to organise the tiki tour. Thank you. All right. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Douglas, you've got your hand up. Yes.
Yeah, I did have a palm in there, but it's gone somewhere. No, fully support Mayor Tong's idea of getting in a bus and for councillors to see some of these roading issues. Around us more recently, there's been, one issue of road signs being mowed over by we don't know who, but it's an issue that's been ongoing now for about 6 weeks and probably cost us a lot of money. And we need to sort of come up with a bit of a strategy there. The other thing is I've noticed is that the grass verge that comes up to the edge of the tar seal is being scraped away. Now, I imagine that is to improve drainage of the road, and Hartley might like to comment on that. So what is our policy? Are we allowing grass to grow up to the road edge, which I believe reduces edge break, or are we going to scrape it away to improve drainage? Have you got a comment on that, Hartley or Rob?
Chair, I can comment on that. So yes, it is there to improve, well, the scraping away does improve the drainage, because over time the grass does build up and create a bit of a high lip, which then starts to retain water. So every few years a person does need to come along and just scrape that high lip or remove that high lip. Our current stance is that we do it as part of our pre-reseal repairs. So that generates effectively a cycle and a work program methodology for doing it. And then the interim years, we've got those grass shoulders. We just generally mow it, or if we do a bit of edge spraying, that 100 mil, 120 mil, just to try and keep back some of that high lip that does eventually grow. But to your point also around the edge break, that's the, I suppose the balancing act is that it does reduce the amount of edge break that occurs, particularly on the narrow roads. But eventually it does create other problems like retaining water, so we do have to get rid of it every once in a while. Furthermore, from it was touched on in the question earlier around drainage, the grass shoulders do provide a benefit there from obviously heavy metals, etc., that come off vehicles, and there's a preferred option of having a grass strip in that water table to just help improve that the negative environmental aspects of having motor cars on the road.
All right. Any other comments or questions? I can't see anybody's hand up, so that must be it. Thank you for the discussion and the issues that have been raised, and certainly some positivity has come out of that with regards to we're going to get on a bus and have a look around our district, and as Mayor Tom said, it's well overdue, but there's been certain aspects that's prevented us from doing that, but it's back on the agenda, and it's good that we'll have that opportunity to actually do that. I'm happy to move that we receive this report. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Keast. All those in favour, please say aye. Oh, wave your hand, sorry. Against? Carried, thank you. We'll now go to the next item, 7.3, which is the dust suppression. So I'll get Mr. Clearwater to speak to this.
So, sorry, Mr. Chair, I'll present on behalf of Mr. Clearwater. He's having some IT issues with sound. So, yeah, it's a bit of a last minute change.
That's all right.
So this report covers dust suppression options. As you're aware, through the long-term plan process, we received quite a few submissions on dust suppression. Overall, I'll take the report as being read, but there are a few items I'll just cover off in terms of also some of the investigation work we did and the options. So we, as you're aware, Council is elected to put $100,000 a year towards this. We did apply for additional funding to Waka Kotahi, but have been unsuccessful with that. As a result of that, we sort of revisited the options on and how we could effectively divvy up the $100,000. So that has had an influence on our recommendation today. So the main issue, I suppose just a quick recap, is that with the changes to land plan and the ability for ratepayers no longer to freely apply waste oil, the alternative dust suppression options do come at a significantly increased cost, and that's generated those submissions that we saw through the long-term plan. So some of the options that we investigated was looking at a 50-50 type contribution for auto seal or other dust suppression treatment. And we thought, with that obviously reduces the number of applicants that would actually directly benefit. The other way was looking at a prioritization option around basically a risk type approach, and seeing how much of that we could seal or treat with the $100,000 available. And then the third option we investigated was if people applied a longer term dust suppression like Autoseal, one of the issues we could face is that you end up with gaps in between, say, a sealed road network and the treatment, or multiple people applying a treatment, and you end up with 100 or 200 meter, in essence, unsealed road portions in between. So do we take that money and invest it to effectively make a contiguous section of treated road? And then the fourth option we looked at is, well, there's obviously other costs associated, not just with applying a dust suppression, such as your traffic management fees, application fees, etc. So do we look at a methodology of supporting and reducing those costs on those applying to put down the Autoseal? And then the final option, which is potentially more a longer term option, is looking at more a targeted rating type system for individuals. In essence, council acting as a bank, and then those costs going on individual or their household rates, and then paying it off over longer term from an affordability perspective. For that particular one, there's quite a bit more work involved. So we didn't see that as a option that we could quickly and efficiently implement within the first year. Based on on trying to make, in essence, stretch the money as far as we go, as well as providing some subsidy towards ratepayers on this, staff recommendation is to look at the subsidy towards traffic management, or covering the cost of traffic management and other application fees, but the actual cost of the Autoseal still sitting with individual household. So that's, in a nutshell, really where we've landed, but keen to obviously take any questions on that or have some further discussion.
Thanks for that, Hartley. Let's open this up for discussions, because I know this was raised during the LTP process, and I know there's been a number of other councillors that have certainly raised their concern over this particular aspect. So let's open up for discussion. So Councillor Ruttenclaw.
Am I unmuted this morning?
Yes, you're doing good.
Through you, the Chair, thank you. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the report. I've got a few questions and comments. Nice to see it at the table. Firstly, price. So for 200 metres, it would cost $3,000. My question is it as cost effective for smaller amounts as it is for like a kilometre?
So through Chair, no, it's not. One of the things we have found out, I suppose, as a comparison where councillors applied Autoseal, and we have done kilometre or 2 kilometre sections. I think some of the most recent being around Theonia now. We've probably paid around the $14 a square metre is what it's worked out to be. But there's obviously large quantities. From some individuals that have gone out and sought pricing themselves, some of the pricing we've got back is sort of ranged between around the $17,000 mark. So there's quite a big cost difference for just a one-off 100 metre treatment as opposed to doing 1 kilometre. There's potentially two elements around that. One is obviously the location. The gear that gets used to apply it, if you're only going to set it up for a one-off 100 metre section, there's not efficient utilisation of the gear that's getting used by the contractors. So that's putting up the cost quite significantly as well.
Thank you, Hartley. So the cost, you said 17,000. Does that include the consent to put it down as well?
So as far as we're aware, the $17,000, that's an all-in cost. That's the rate the contractors have supplied to the individuals to get the product on the ground in front of their house.
Okay. Thank you. Have we also given any consideration to when otter seal is put down on these roads that we put a slower speed sign up for longevity of the product?
True, Mr. Chair. So yes, that's one of the things around the traffic management element of it, is that it's not just when the work occurs on the day. There's actually for a 2 or 3 month period where you do have a reduced traffic management over it as the road in essence cures and the product comes to the surface, so to say. Because in terms of the methodology applied, you shape up the road, the otter seal gets sprayed onto the road, and then the aggregate gets put back over the road. So for the first 2 or 3 months until it cures, it just looks like just like a gravel road really, until the product cures and some of that loose material then pushes off to the side, and then you get your final product. So during that time period, there's still ongoing traffic management needs.
So after the traffic management's lifted after those months, would we consider like slowing that piece of road down with a limited sign, put it down to 70 k's or something like that?
The short answer is that yes, we can, but there's some practical issues with it in terms of legally how long you can have a temporary speed limit in place, and then obviously through a bylaw process implementing a longer term speed limit.
Yeah, but if I may, in support of Councillor Rutherford's comments, there is a possibility and an avenue for us to be able to manage the speed on those roads. If we put auto seal down, we do have the capabilities of having a lower speed for forever, however long, for years, forever, to ensure that that particular piece of the road is sustainable for a long period of time. Because if you put the road speed back up to 100 k's, it's going to do some damage. So if we're able to say, look, we'll drop it down to 80, and that's the speed for that part of the road, that's what the speed is. So there are ways of achieving that. It's not impossible, but there's a process to go through.
Thank you. I think it's a significant investment on behalf of our ratepayer too, putting that money down and to look after it. I do have a few other comments as well. I'm just looking through my list here. To be built into this. What have we got? So priority-wise, I've got 5 high-need people already in their community, and it's been that we've been talking about it with them for such a long time. Can they go ahead now, apply for consent if they want to put it down themselves? Do we have contractors available and recommendations for these people?
So before you answer that, we would have to have, and correct me if I'm wrong, with the recommendations put forward, I see that there's a possibility or a proposal for a 50-50 cost sharing. There may be the options of the residents do the 100% if that's what they would like to do, if that's an option, or there's another option, whether it's 80-20, where the resident right by the road does the 80% and we only do a 20%. It doesn't have to be a 50-50. So I think we need to see how we can massage that so we have more options. Well, actually, it's not just options for us, but also options for the residents right by the road. If they're really keen to have it and they wish to have auto seal, we can identify the cost of that. And if they want to pay that cost, then of course there will be a program that will have to be put in place by the team in the office here as to when that can be done. But certainly, if somebody wants to say, look, I'll pay 80% of it, if you do a 20% contribution, or it's a 50-50, we need to communicate with those individuals to see what options are actually available.
Great comment. I also think probably it's something that anyone building their gravel roads in the future needs to factor into the cost of their build.
That's an option. I do see that Councillor Scott and Councillor Menzies got their hands up as well. So Councillor Scott, you've been waiting for a while. And I see Councillor Keast as well. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just in support of what Councillor Rutherford was saying, I feel this is a real case of where Waka Kotahi's let us down with that whole sort of funding side of things, and it's frustrating to see what the $29 million getting spent on that what we call innovating streets for people, which caused a whole lot of controversy and all of that. And yeah, we've got a real need for people, and we've had these presentations to council by the public and in the long-term plan where it's affecting people's health and day-to-day living. So for $100,000 to spread along a lot of people, I think we're going to have to manage this as carefully as possible. And I just wondered, like, if we could do some kind of a coordinated response, so we do it sort of area by area to minimise some of those costs, because like Councillor Ravenpool said, a small section, you're not going to get much economy of scale in that. So if we can do it sort of area by area, but yeah, I think yeah, I know there's people around where I live as well that I certainly wanted to get something done, and I think we're trying. Yeah, how we do that within a very small budget, I don't know, but I think it's very important we get moving quite fast on this too.
I think that's where you give people some options.
Yeah.
Councillor Menzies, and then Councillor Keast.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Ravenclaw has asked a question I had sitting there about what about the opportunity for those who want to go ahead and do it themselves. So that's great. My other comment would be that particularly for those, and there were a couple who presented a long-term plan hearings where health and safety is a significant issue, you know, can't let their children go and play outside, and the contamination of their drinking water. Time is of the essence. So I think it would be helpful for our community to understand the timeframes that might be in place around establishing a clear policy around this, recognising that we need to communicate with our community around these options as well. But there have been some in our community who have indicated we just want to go ahead and do this now, and how can we provide that opportunity immediately or as soon as possible. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Councillor Keast.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would back up the discussion with from Councillor Scott and Councillor Menzies. Particularly, I'm very disappointed that Wakatoi this is basically a safety issue. It might not be a road safety issue, but it's a safety in many ways, or the nuisance factor is, but it is impacting on people's health. So I don't see what's their budget for the safety aspect of the roads. You know, like, this is ridiculous that they can back out of this. And I would like to see that, or like assurances really, that we have challenged them on every way in that regard for this lack of funding. Going on from that, it probably begs the question as to whether 80 k's on gravel roads should be the speed limit, because it does reduce down the dust somewhat and protects our roads. So that's another factor for consideration. But also, I think what we need to do here is actually get a handle on how many people are actually interested in doing it. Maybe we could set up an expression of interest on Make It Stick, or somewhere, you know, an email address that people can register their interest in being involved in this, in getting this done as soon as possible, because then we get a far better handle on what our 100,000 is likely to, what's the fairest way to apply that for people to each have a share. There will be those that just want to get it done, and my recommendation would be that we should get out of their way as quickly as possible so that they can get it done. Going back a step, and a coordinated approach, so that for the contractors we can make it efficient for them, that if there is a group of people in an area that want this work done, that we can put them in touch with the contractor at the same time, would make sense as well. We need to think of ways of being enabling here so that we can get as much of this done as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keast. I see Mr. Hamlin, he's got his hand up, so over to you.
Yeah, Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just listening in on the conversation and reading through the options, one I guess possibility could be that, there obviously is a number of residents or ratepayers that would financially be able to carry out this work themselves. And then there would be others that obviously would be really stretched. I wonder where the best use of the 100,000 is some sort of a hardship fund that's some sort of means test for those that are in the greater need to have it done, to try to make the 100,000 go as far as it can in the first year, and then make decisions or council make decisions in the further long term in regards to what that fund may be made up of.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm of the mind that this report doesn't quite fit the purpose, doesn't quite fit what we're discussing. And it may be feasible that we actually let this report lie, so it gives management an opportunity to work out a process, where to from here, keeping in mind all the comments that have been made. There are some further options that need to be explored. And as managements go through that gives them the opportunity to actually develop a process to actually move this particular item forward. So with your agreement, with the council's agreement, I would suggest that we leave this report on the table, so to speak, and that we have, okay, I see Mr. Russell's got his hand up, so I'm probably speaking out of turn. No, okay, so I'll keep going in the meantime, because I think that we haven't quite got this together as best as we can. So as I say, let's give management the time to redo this report, take on board all our comments, see how we can speed this up, look at those options, and a process for us to move forward. So I think that's probably a logical way to continue, but I'll ask Mr. Russell to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Hey, listen, that's don't disagree with that at all, Mr. Chairman. I was just wanting to ensure that we're really crystal clear from a staff perspective in terms of what it is you're looking for, and that we're obviously interested in meeting governance expectations. The reason why we brought this back perhaps a little hastily was some of the messaging and discussion we were hearing around the table in terms of the importance of this issue, recognising that we've only got $100,000 to spend as part of the LTP budget, and the decision obviously that Waka Kotahi made after that budget was established has thrown a cat amongst the pigeons, so to speak. In terms of individual ratepayers or homeowners wanting to invest in otter sealing outside their property without council contribution, from my perspective, I don't see that as a significant impediment, and something that can be achieved reasonably easily. As far as some of the longer term policy positions around permanent speed reductions and means testing or matrix development to prioritise who might be best to receive aspects of the funding first. We had discussed that internally and perhaps considered that might be stage 2 of the decision-making process, and really today was around establishing how we might look to distribute the $100,000 and getting work underway sooner rather than later, given that was, we understood that was council's desire. So look, bit of a long-winded way of saying it would be really helpful if we could get super specific around what your expectations are, so that when we bring this report back to council for further discussion, or to services and assets for further discussion, we meet those expectations.
Okay, that's very useful. Right, I see plenty of hands coming up now. So Councillor Scott, we've got Councillor Keast, we've got Councillor Fraser. Councillor Scott, you had your hand up first. I also see Councillor Harper and Councillor. Right, everybody wants to have a say. So let's start with the top, Councillor Scott.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And just in relation to Mr. Russell's comments, I support what Councillor Keith said before. I think what we need to do is get a like an expression of need from a survey of all the residents to get a clear picture of what people are actually needing and what people are wanting. And that survey could have questions around how close is your property to the road, what are the impacts of the dust, so that we can actually, that would help in prioritising from our point of view, having that information in front of us. So yeah, I certainly support that approach.
Yep, absolutely. Right, Councillor Keast.
I probably don't need to add anything further to what, just reinforce what Councillor Scott said. Thank you.
Councillor Fraser.
Just trying to get my mute off. Just wondering around the communication, if it's a simple process for people to do it now, how do we communicate that out to the general populace to say, hey, if you want to do it, this is how to do it, and we're happy for you to do that. So there's a communication around that. And at the same time as we communicate that, then picking up on what the expression of interest type stuff could go, we want to hear from you, because we are trying to develop this strategy on how we use the limited resources we have. So we give people that option. Bang, you can do it yourself, but let's hear from you so we can work together as well.
Okay. Councillor Myers.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Thank you. I just wanted to support Councillor Keast with the speed reduction idea for the gravel road, because this sounds like a pretty big issue across the district, and reducing the speed doesn't cost the council anything, I don't believe. So yeah, just support that.
Thank you. Councillor Douglas. No.
No, I'm fine.
Thank you. Councillor Ford. Okay. Councillor Ruttnclaw, any more comments? Yes, Mr. Harper, yep. Councillor Ruttnclaw, you're on mute. Oh, there we go.
Oh, thank you. I support that time is of essence, because, and so like everyone else, they're all very passionate about it. I live on a gravel road. I understand, but I am 150 metres from it, and the dust can still get to my house. So
okay.
It's with urgency. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Owen.
Thank you. I just really support all of the suggestions around having a bit more of a look around exactly where the demand is and things like that, and getting a feel from people. I imagine there's probably a lot of people at home who might have more time than they would otherwise. So if that could move more quickly, I'm sure we could get a lot of the word out there around a quick survey of sort of what people feel like they can afford themselves. But I also don't want us to lose sight of the longer term options, because it will be an ongoing thing. So in terms of the targeted rate option, and also I'd like us to think about if there's a way in terms of topping up that fund from, we know that there's a lot of industry using some of the gravel roads and the impacts that they're contributing to, if there's a way for whether it's part of development contributions or something else that they can feed into that fund to help top up, because in some instances it is the industrial vehicles going past that are causing a large part of the problem. So I think that those industries should be contributing to managing those effects.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. I think we need to bear in mind Mr. Russell's comment about being specific what we want brought back. I mean, we talk about it lying on the table, but things can lie on the table that long they die sometimes. The other point, just about not standing in the way of people wanting to do their own, I think we need to be wary of the need for some quality control around that. Autoseal is something, and from the little bit I've seen of it, can work really well or not. And so some consistency about the quality of the actual work is needed. So I don't think council should be completely hands off about that. At the same time, we don't want to be incurring costs on people that are over and above what's necessary, but still, I just don't think we should just sit back and let people, just engage whoever and go for it. I know even with the oil, there were some quite big differences in what you got outside people's places. I did have a call from a lady from over in Margie's direction somewhere that had great success with that oil-based stuff, not the other suppressant, but she's the only person I've ever heard of that was pleased with that result. And I don't know what was different about what they did. But I gather all the suppressant we're talking about now is Otosil. We've kicked for touch any other options. And if that's the case, at least we're down to one sort of a remedy. But we just need to be a bit careful, I think, about how we do that. But certainly we need to prioritise it and make sure that 100,000, wherever it's used, is used to the best effect. And I do agree with Councillor Owen about we should keep in mind that targeted rating, because I think over a period of time, that's probably a good option, even though it might take a little longer to get established.
Thank you. Some very good comments there, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Harper?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'd like to agree with most of the comments that have come forward, but I'm just wondering if maybe we should be putting a feeler out towards the health department as well. It'd be good to have them on our side and give a bit of weight to any further discussion with Waka Kotahi.
Thank you for that. Councillor Menzies.
You're muted.
Thank you. Just noting I support the elements in the report, particularly around the 100-metre guideline, and also that we are looking at residents, not at farm buildings, etc. And that while further work's been done around the policy in relation to the comments made, that we can start gaining some feedback or expressions of interest from our community to give us an idea of what we're actually looking at, and that can be based on some of those guidelines or for an agreement around the 100 metres and farm buildings, and noting elements such as health and safety, etc. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So I think I've gone, okay, Councillor Rattenclaw.
Sorry, I'll just make a comment in regard to the farm buildings. I've got a girlfriend who breeds and rides horses, and she's an incredible show jumper and eventer, and her stables are right on a gravel road, and she's on my list. She is really wanting to ensure her animal health and her breeding program is secure going forward. So we will need to put a lot of thought around that as well. And I'll just make a comment to Paul. I'm thinking that ratepayer that you spoke to, I live at the base of the Hokanui Hills, so I was wondering if there's a little bit of moonshine in it or something that's made it so good.
Very good. Okay, I see Susan McNamara, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things we did mention in the report was around a targeted rate, and I know a number of you have raised that as a possible way forward. What we have discovered to date, we've done a bit of work and looked at the Healthy Homes scheme as something comparable. So we've done a little bit of work around that, but what we have found to date is that Auckland City Council have been taken to task by the Commerce Commission and finding around about reasonable inquiries about making sure borrowers could make repayments of loans and that they were making informed decisions and other items. And on the back of that Commerce decision backing, there's at least one other council, and we suspect more, that have actually withdrawn those schemes. So while we've currently left a resolution in this report about the investigation of it, we're not sure it's actually going to come to fruition in a way that we can use it.
Okay, to be considered. Mr. Russell.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, councillors, for the feedback. But again, just to crystallise where we're heading and ensure we're meeting expectations, you'd like a survey generated as soon as possible for a district around. I think what I was hearing was levels of interest in the treatment rather than prioritisation. I think we would propose prioritisation on the basis, discussion internally has been around on the basis of things like prevailing wind, existing screening, types of vehicles on the road in and around the property, proximity to the road, whether there is any immunocompromised residents or existing health concerns. That would be how we would anticipate a prioritisation matrix might be fleshed out, rather than asking residents how that prioritisation would work. So just to be clear, you're wanting us, and perhaps Louise, you may have some comments and feedback around time that might take and process to be undertaken in order to set expectations around when this might come back to council for further deliberation and discussion. You're after a survey to garner the degree of interest from residents in the level of service from council. We're not adjusting budgets. It's really how we expend the budget.
That's correct. You're absolutely right with regards to the budget. The budget is what the budget is. Certainly not looking at expanding that, but certainly giving people the opportunity as to how they wish to participate. So taking Council Duffy's comment on board that we don't want this document to lie until it's dead. So are we able to get something back to the next Services and Asset Committee meeting, which is next month? Is that possible? And I'm throwing that to Mr. Russell, because it's your staff that will need to pull this together ASAP.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd have to defer to Louise around if the critical next step is a survey out to our district. That's a comms activity primarily. We'll certainly be informing that and helping shape that, but the ins and outs of that process, I'll defer to Louise. Louise, are you around to comment?
Yes, I am. I think if you want to get a worthwhile response, you're going to need to be out for a survey for at least 2 to 3 weeks. So turning it around in a month's time when you've got to write a report and analyse the data that comes back in might be somewhat difficult.
Sorry, you want to say something?
I said, I think it would be better to aim for the next month's meeting after that. So give it 2 months.
So we're looking at October.
That would be my recommendation.
A quick thumbs up from the councillors, please, if everybody is comfortable with that. I'll come back to you in a minute, committee advisor. Just a quick thumbs up of is people comfortable with we have something back to us in October? Yes? No? No? Too long? Okay. Okay, that's you got a clear signal from the councillors that that's just a little bit too long, so we want to speed this up. We may need to call a extraordinary Service and Asset committee meeting to discuss that one particular item. So maybe that's something that we need to consider. So what I'll do is I'll come back to the rest of the councillors within the next 24 hours. I'll have a discussion with Louise and Mr. Russell and Mr. Cameron, and we will develop a process pathway forward to speed this up, and then I'll come back to you ASAP. Councillor Menzies.
Thank you, Chair. I just wonder if we can clarify that alongside that those who might be interested in funding the auto seal themselves can make an immediate approach to council and make those arrangements, please.
I think that's a good idea, but we also need to make sure that it fits in with our work program as well. I mean, this is in addition to what's being done, the normal work program. So we've got to make sure that it has the capabilities of it being implemented. So I'm not trying to water it down. I appreciate what you're saying, but also, you know, people will put their hand up and say, look, I've made a request to council to get my part of my road auto sealed, and it still hasn't been done. It's been 3 months. So we need to be a little bit careful how we don't have people's expectation being so high that we can't meet. Hartley, here, you've got a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I suppose just on that item, it's whether the expectation is for those individuals that it gets incorporated into, that the expectation is that staff arrange and manage the application of the auto seal from a district-wide point of view, as opposed to each individual, as currently sits with any dust suppression, they arrange for that to be taken place. So it's still on the individual householder to manage that process and the timing of it. Because they can have two vastly different implications.
I think let's just park that one, because that's a whole different can of worms that you've just raised. I would not see, and this is only my personal view, and it's only off the cuff, I would not see that any individual would be making their own arrangements to get auto seal done in front of their house. But that's something that we need to discuss a little bit further. That's part of the process and implementation. So I've made a suggestion that that I come back to council ASAP to this committee as soon as I've had a discussion with the appropriate individuals and see what we can pull together sooner rather than later. I appreciate the urgency that everybody has placed on this, and I've certainly taken that on board. I see there's 2 hands up. Those will be the 2 last questions, and then we'll move on. Councillor Douglas, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So it's a question for the staff. What is the contractor capability to perform the auto seal work?
Well, that was part of my comment before, that it has to fit in with their work programs and everything else. So that's something that we will need to take into account with the discussions that I'll have with Hartley, Matt, and Louise, and Cameron as well. So you're right, that's about deliverable as well. Hence, the expectations have to be managed. Susan, got your hand up.
Sorry, I think it's from last time and I haven't worked out how to turn it off.
Okay, right. I think we've had a very good discussion of this. It's an important issue, considering there's a large number of our residents live on gravel roads, and there's a lot of activity on our roads with our contractors, service delivery people. So I think we've got a very good message from the committee members, so I certainly appreciate that. So probably just a bit of advice. Committee advisor, you had your hand up early on.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if you're going to lie it on the table, you'll need to get them. You can move it in a seconder to lie the report on the table.
Yep, I was going to do that, so I appreciate for that confirmation. So I'll move that this report. Is that appropriate wording? Lies on the table?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Right, I'll move that, and seconded by Councillor Riverton. So appreciate that. So all those in favour, wave your little hand. Okay, against, carried. Thank you for that. Excellent discussion. Right, we go on to the item 7.5, Te Anau Wastewater Scheme update. Mr. Hamlin. You want to give us?
7.4.
7 point.
An asset report.
Sorry?
There's a 7.4 services and assets program report.
Oh, sorry, we jumped the gun. So I have to. My apologies. Yep, 7.4 service asset program report. Mr. Hammond, you want to talk to that one?
Yeah,
my apologies.
No, not a problem. And just for clarification, Jeff Gray is on the line as well this morning for 7.5 for the Theonia wastewater upgrade. So,
yep, thank you.
So look, I'll take the report as read, but I will just touch on a few key things that are that have been happening in the last month. So the year has actually started incredibly well with $3.2 million of work turned over. A big chunk of that being the Three Waters stimulus funding, which is continuing very well. That $13.5 million worth of work is well on track to be delivered within the funding requirements, which is by end of March next year. There's a number of projects that obviously with the current COVID that have stood down, but they will be very quickly be able to be restarted again as soon as we hit into the appropriate levels. Obviously, it was good news in the last few months with the additional money received from the TIF fund. That work is started in the planning. We've started a resource up for that, some external resources to assist with getting that underway. And we've started some communication plans for the Over Island project as well. We had a really great outcome with the contractor drop-in session. So we had that out on social media for some time. We had around 70 contractors register their interest, and we had around about 40 to 50 attend 2 workshops. Really good feedback, really good opportunity to talk to especially some of the smaller contractors around the region. And some really good feedback in regards to how they would like to be able to access, the ability to work for SDC. So we're putting some plans in place in regards to how that continues to roll out. What was really pleasing was there was through the social media, it connected really well. And we had some contractors that came in that weren't aware exactly of just the scale of works that SDC does every year. So, and other ones were very interested in potentially, if the contracts were longer, resourcing up, whether that's people or gear or equipment, to look at tendering for longer term type contracts. So really good feedback, and we'll keep that going. Projects, we've got a number of projects due to start in the next couple of months. Taramia Bay Toilet, we've got building consent in for that. The 21-22 bridge package is due to go out. And Moore's Reserve track works, and the final stages of the work completing to 4th Street. So, and just the last piece for me is around the, I'll just check the page number, page 3 of this report, page 56. So the financial information has been updated to the 21-22 annual plan. You'll see in the second line down that the 2021 carry forward process hasn't completed yet. So once that has been completed, those numbers will be formatted in there, and then any unbudgeted expenditure for this package of work, this program of work, will be detailed in that 21-22 budget as well. So that budget's likely to move up as the next month carries on. And then on the second part of that is the overall stimulus funding, which has been reported for some time. So that's pretty much everything from me. As I said, well underway with this year's works program. A lot of work coming out to market, and a pretty busy team.
Thank you, Mr. Hamlin. I'll open that up for discussion and any questions that councillors may have. So raise your hand. Well, it must be a good report, Mr. Hamlin. Everybody's happy. Oops, no, we've got Councillor Menzies. We just about got there.
I'll be quick. I just wondered if there was anything that the community boards can do around assisting with those contracts with just coming up to speed, or they may be already doing it. Just, yeah, that was my.
Yep, through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, look, what's highlighted that connection is we need to do more in regards to connecting out to both community boards and our community. So, and we've had a number of contractors come back to us and say, how do I keep regularly engaged? You know, lots don't review the likes of the government electronic system. So what we're trying to suggest to all our contractors, and we will send this out to our community boards as well to pass on, is that if contractors have an interest in doing work with SDC over the coming years, we suggest that they become an approved contractor, which means that when they look to then price something, they're able to tender it and they're able to be awarded a contract versus having contractors that aren't approved. Once we've done a tender process, it gets really difficult and messy. So it is a work in progress, and we will get some more information out to the community boards on that as we go along.
Thank you for that. No further questions, comments? Oops, Councillor Harper is waving his hand. Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Yep, just wondering about the Moors Reserve track works. What actually does that entail?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So that work is really just maintenance and repair. We've had a team up there looking at the track condition, as well as there's a number of structures up there, timber structures, which are being reviewed at the moment as well.
Okay, I'm just a bit curious about how some of the community boards do all that sort of maintenance and stuff by themselves on their own bat, and others just put it to the council. So yeah, just a comment. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councillor Owen. I
Yeah,
see Councillor Duffy as well. So Councillor Owen first.
Thank you. I understood that the Moors Reserve track work was, there's a section that goes over the back where the track stops and you go over a stile and join on the Te Araroa Trail heading down to Tihaka, and it's very slippery. It's essentially, once it rains, it becomes just a clay slide down that hill. And so my understanding, the original points raised from the community board was wanting some steps to be put in there. So just wanting to clarify that that's what's happening.
Yeah, through Mr. Chair, yes, I understand that's part of the work.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on page 60, I see reference to the work continuing to do with the fire evacuation plans for the halls. Now, I don't know of, and the conversations that have been taking place, but I actually don't know of any of these conversations taking place, and just wondering what's that based on. Have those halls, have all of the halls been notified yet of the fire emergency requirements for evacuation?
Through Mr. Chair, I do have Mark Day on the line that may be able to add some information to this. I do know that all the applications have gone into FENS, and staff will have had to have worked through what is on each site. But Mark, are you able to come on the line?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Not only have all council-owned halls had conversations, but we have also sent out to all non-council-owned halls a letter with their financial information about the same obligations that they have. We have also submitted all of the fire evacuation plans to FENS for council-owned halls. They have come back, and there has been 3 questions that they have asked us. So once we have provided that additional information, they will be resubmitted.
Oh, well, thank you. So where did the other halls get there? When were those letters sent?
Through you, Mr. Chair, those letters went out in the last 3 weeks. So when the finance team sent out the financial information, I included that letter with that information.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Yes, Mr.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Just a clarification on the Moors Reserve as a district funded, not locally funded.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, there being none, I'll move that we receive this report. Do I have a second for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Menzies. All those in favour, wave your hand. All those against? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
We now go to 7.5. That's the Theonia wastewater scheme. And Nick, you're there, and I believe Jeff is probably there as well.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, councillors. Just like to give a brief overview of the Theonia project, and ultimately we've had some major milestones in the last period. One being, to me, very, very significant is the achievement of over 80,000 on-site man-hours, if I will, construction hours. These have been achieved with no medical treatment injuries or no lost time injuries. So I think it's a credit to all parties, all head contractors. A brief update, the Theonia site, the membrane treatment site, is currently locked up and is safe and secure for the COVID-19. All works up there are complete, excluding the installation of the actual membranes, and that will be installed upon commissioning. The pipeline was tested and has been put through its paces. We pumped just in excess of 4 million litres of water from the Theonia township, out of the Theonia township scheme, and put it into the Kepler STI field for commissioning, and that went very, very successfully. The pasture is being prepared and will now be ready in probably October, November, pending maybe December, for the first cut of the new season for the baleage on that site. So everything's well and truly underway there. The Kepler STI site, all physical works on site have been completed, with 50% of the commissioning undertaken. During this commissioning period, it was found to have some defective hardware installed into the site. This hardware is being rectified. We have equipment being flown out of Spain currently, and it's due into New Zealand on the 1st of September. With current COVID restrictions, I can't really confirm exactly when we'll get back in to make those installations, but once those equipment hit New Zealand, we'll be able to make a more calculated assumption on time. From that, the fibre connection that runs from all the fields on the STI site and then runs up State Highway to the Theonia site is being tested and has been put through use. We're also connected through to the South District Council SCADA system. So the whole site is effectively live on our system. It's just parked up until we can complete commissioning.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Nick Hamlin, do you want to make any additional comments?
Look, no, just firstly support you from what the team have done up there. We're obviously working pretty hard to resolve the current issues we've got with some hardware. We've had multiple conversations this week and last week with the key parties. We're really, until such time that we can get that defective equipment replaced and in place, we can't complete the commissioning. But as soon as that's done, we will, we've got the team on standby to continue with that commissioning. And then if there's any further issues other than that, then we will have to work through that as quickly as we can.
Thank you for that. And yes, it's been a great effort by everybody, and to get where we are, it's been very good. Did we? I just want to get to this this hardware that's not up to standard, and I'm surprised that that's come in, and we just find out now that it's defective. Have we received a report from Stantec that give us some guidance and some assurance and some comfort that this is going to be fixed relatively quickly? And I'd like to know what their comments have been.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, we've received 2 reports from Stantec and their subsequent subcontractors. We certainly have had some pretty in-depth discussions as to where we are heading, and I have complete assurances by Stantec and their design team that that this issue is ultimately minor. Once we get the hardware in from Spain and installed, we can then complete commission again. So it was unforeseen. From the sounds of it, 10 wasn't talking to the right hand within the manufacturing depot.
So the items that are being resent from Spain, we've got assurance and a degree of comfort that they are the correct ones?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair, absolutely.
And Stantec have also given us that assurance?
Yes, they have, absolutely.
Okay. I see that in your report, you estimate that this delay could be up to 12 months. That's a bit of a concern.
Just to clarify that, Mr. Chairman, with the experience we had on the SDI field, to get the valves that are in dispute at the moment took 9 months for them to come out of Spain and to be assembled and delivered to Theonia. If for whatever reason we have further issues with the hardware and we have to get hardware in from another source, I would be expecting we'll be between that 6 to 9 month delay for supply.
If we get the hardware from another supplier, what risk is there with regards to will Stantec still underwrite the delivery of the scheme?
Yes,
are they ordering it or are we ordering it? How's that being managed?
Well, currently at the moment, Mr. Chairman, the defective items fall through on the head contractor. They purchased the valves and the valves were not fit for purpose. So that falls back onto the head contractor of the site, and they have been liaising with the multiple parties to get the hardware into New Zealand and to get it installed. Should there be any other further delays, obviously Stantec's warranty will apply.
Yeah, okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So as always on this project, and I think everyone will be aware that we've had some major ups and downs on this project from day one. The team is working on various other contingency plans depending on the arrival of these valves or this equipment and what other options we have. Jeff's working in the background with contacting other suppliers in case there is issues. So we're doing everything we can to ensure that we have contingency on top of contingency to ensure that this SDI field can be commissioned and put into use as soon as possible.
Yeah, thanks for that. The concern I have is if Jeff, and I know you're doing a cracker job, Jeff, but if you're talking to suppliers, are we then sidelining our contractors, and do we then take over that risk? Because if they are faulty, do we then pick it up? Are we now getting involved in an area that we should not be?
Mr. Chairman, all I'm probably doing, and I've done all through this project, is make contingency planning. If something doesn't fulfill or its obligations, then I've at least done my homework and have another proposal forward through. It doesn't remove any obligation from the head contractor or from Stantec. We're not implementing any other hardware. All we're doing is simply looking for a plan B should the original plan fall through.
Okay, no, appreciate that. And the potential cost of this delay, any idea?
Look, I'm still working through head contractors. Ultimately, the head contractor on site had finished and they have disestablished from site. There are other parties concerned being the other head contractor from the Theonia site. They have lodged a claim with us for COVID, and they've also lodged a claim with us for the postponement. So those costs are still unknown.
Okay, and you're working on those at the moment to see what sort of costs they could be.
Correct.
Yep, okay. Be good to know once you've done your analysis on those finances. I'd like to know what they are.
No problem.
So just I'll finish off and then I'll open it up for discussion, but you're comfortable with where we're at. I understand that this is not a desirable position to be in, but you're comfortable as far as that the whole program isn't in jeopardy. This is a minor issue. In fact, where you've got some valves that aren't working as they should be. You've got some new equipment coming in, which is going to resolve that issue. So it's nothing major as far as you are concerned.
No, through you, Mr. Chair, I'm comfortable. I've had reassurances from the designer and the consultant that they are more than comfortable their design is fit for purpose and will achieve. We obviously ceased work solely due to these defective hardware, and I am confident that the reassurances given to me yesterday by the designer will have the scheme up and running.
Okay. All right, I'll open up for discussion. I see Councillor Douglas, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, I'm just concerned as to where these additional costs will lie. Are they not covered by the original contract, and so that the liability would rest with the contractor? I just need sort of clarity, because I see in the report there the additional costs could be, well, I'm reading it, could be considerable. I would have thought that a well-written contract would have discussed and catered for this sort of eventuality.
Yep, thank you for that. Yeah, Mr. Hammond.
Through Mr. Chair, look, absolutely. There's contracts in place for all the main suppliers on this project, and we're working through that pretty carefully in regards to making sure that any liability sits where the liability has been bound to be. We've got a designer that needs to ensure that he signs off that the design is complete as per the what he has designed. We have a contractor that needs to sign off that he has put in what he's been asked to put in. And we've also got another party, which is obviously Bremke, who did all the science and behind the operating systems, who again we have a contract with. So all the contracts are well in place. What we can't do at the moment is come out heavy-handed until such time that we can ascertain exactly what the issue will be. And we can't do that until such time we've repaired the defective parts, completed the commissioning. Then we'll have a better understanding of what may have caused this and where the contractual lines may lie.
Yep, hence my previous comments, as well as what's in place with our contractors, and it's an assurance that I was looking for, and that Stantec have been put on notice that they need to take some accountability and responsibility for this. So, and it is, the whole system being built as per the specifications. So if that has been the case, then the liability certainly lies with them rather than us. And I believe that the entire build has been as per the specifications, Jeff.
Absolutely, 100%, absolutely.
Yep, and that's a big plus for us. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question on the consent. If we do end up with a 12-month delay, does that have any impact on the consent extension that we got for the existing system?
No, it doesn't. Through you, Mr. Chair, no, the existing consent we have for the discharge into the Upakaroa expires, I believe, on the 26th of November 2023. So we are well and truly within time frame.
Yep, that's correct. Any comments, questions? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just got a question. I heard you mention the pasture, Jeff. Is that the resowing you're talking about?
No, through you, Mr. Chairman. No, that's a cut of baited for the first cut for this season.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The new grass you're talking about sowing, you won't be sowing that yet.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we sow the grass approximately 15 months ago now, so the pasture is getting more and more mature. Yeah. We have made some minor excavations during construction, which have yet to be resowed. They'll be resowed once the weather permits, but currently 99% of the pasture is ready for harvest.
Yeah. Yeah, no, sorry, I was meaning the stuff you need to resow over the drip lines. So yeah. You won't sow that till well into September, I presume, at the earliest.
So the actual pasture over the dripper line itself doesn't need any more remedial. It is at the end of each dripper line, which I think we equated to 2.5 hectares of land mass. So the actual physical dripper line itself, the surface is immaculate and is growing grass, and it is very, very hard to actually see where we've installed dripper line.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? There being none, Thank you, Jeff, and also Nick. And Jeff, I know this is a frustrating time for you, and I can appreciate that, and also appreciate the hard work that you're putting into to get this sorted, and you're doing your due diligence and your homework as well. So just a compliment to yourself as well.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Okay. I'll move that we accept the report. Could I have a second for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Fraser. All those in favour, please wave. All those against is carried. Now, do we have some spare time until we reconvene the council meeting?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, you can declare the services and assets meeting closed, but in the absence of, yep. So we'll close that now, and you can go through in your capacity as Deputy Mayor. You can go through and reconvene the 24th of August council meeting and take everybody through to the point where we pass the resolution to exclude the public. Okay. Then adjourn that meeting, the 24th of August council meeting, and reconvene the 4th of August council meeting and adjourn that till 11 p.m. When the Mayor will be back.
All right.
And then we've got to the where we've adjourned the August council meeting. We'll pause the live stream and the recording, and everybody can have a cup of tea, and we'll come back at 11.
Okay, I'll just rely on a bit of guidance from yourself. So I'll move that we close the Services Asset Committee meeting. So thank you for your participation. And in doing so, I will now
right for the
reconvene the council meeting of the 24th of August. Just give me a moment. I need to get that up. Close.
41 a.m.
So if I understood you correctly, I've now reopened the council meeting of the 24th of August.
Yep.
And shall I carry on through that, or?
Yep. Keep going through till you pass the resolution to exclude the public.
Exactly. All right. And in doing so, I'll move that we.
You need to do apologies and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that. I'm just catching up on my agenda there. So any apologies for the council meeting? I presume there will be none. Leave of absence, there being none. There's no conflict of interest. Is there any conflict of interest? No public forum?
No.
And there are no extraordinary urgent items. Just give me a minute. Move that we confirm the previous council meeting minutes. Can I have a second for that, please?
There's no council minutes to confirm.
I was just trying to find them, so I thought they must be there somewhere, but I must have missed them. There isn't any? Okay, apologies for that.
Sorry, can I just point, did Councillor Douglas declare an interest? And
we're not into the 4th of August council meeting yet, Councillor Owen.
That's right, yeah. So there being no, hang on a minute. Right, so I'll move that we go into public excluded. Could I have a seconder for that, please? thank you, Councillor Menzies. All those in favour, please wave your hand. Against, thank you, carried. So we'll have a brief moment for the